This is The Express with Gary Allen, your 360-degree view of the world. Now, here's your host, Gary Allen.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Express. And tonight we have got a little echo going there, EW. All right, there we go. As far as I know, everybody had a great weekend. I was in San Diego, California, where I had a wonderful time dealing with performing there. And it seems as though as soon as I got there, it was time for me to leave. But before we get into tonight's show, and the wonderful good friend of mine, Natalie Moore, who is a marriage and family therapist, in her new book, It's a Match, Finding the Guide to Finding Lasting Love. I want to pay homage to a gentleman who passed away today. His name was Abe Vigoda. For those of you who are fans of the old Barney Miller show, he played Fish. And for those of you that are a little bit younger, but you watch the Godfather movies every holiday that they seem to come out, he played Sal Tessio, who eventually betrayed Michael. So I'm excited about all that. And, of course, I do want to say hello to all of you who take the time out of your day to join us here on The Express, especially my good friend Randy, who never takes a weekend off, even though I do. So, Randy, thank you so much. And to all of you for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us here on The Express. Joining me tonight is Natalie Moore. As I said, she is a marriage and family therapist specializing in relationship coaching, dating, and marriage. She received her graduate degree from Harvard University, master's degree in marriage and family therapy from my alma mater, the University of Miami. This book is meant to be a guide that includes everything that the reader needs to know in order to find the one. I'm just happy to find half of one. If you need information on relationship, dating, marriage, subscribe to her blog on www.nataliemore.net. Follow her on Twitter, Instagram, and as I do on Facebook. And I am very pleased to have her on this program. She has not only become a very good friend of mine, but we both, as I said, went to the University of Miami, and that makes it kind of special for me. Miss Natalie Moore. Natalie, welcome to the program.
Hi, Gary. How are you? And welcome back from San Diego.
Yes. You know, I lived in California for a number of years of my life, and I used to travel out of Las Vegas a lot, and I would fly to the East Coast to perform. And I had forgotten, I said to Michael over the weekend, I had forgotten, God, how long it is for a flight from here to California and back. It's shorter coming back than it is going over, but, you know, you're trapped on an airplane. Luckily, both ways, I had some wonderful, wonderful people there, and the audience was great. The weather was as cold there as it's been here in central Orlando. You know. Oh, I don't want to be remiss without saying hello to my producer, EW, back in Master Control. I know he's not feeling well. He's a little under the weather with a cold tonight. So, EW, thank you so much for being with us. Natalie, let's talk a little bit about your book. And before I get into this, I looked up some statistics from a show that I did a while ago back. First-time marriages, people who have never been married before, their divorce rate is about 66% in this country. For someone who has been married once and got married again, divorced and married, the divorce rate amongst those people is nearly 75%. And if they get married again for a third time, loser, you know, the statistics even go higher. So that's a place for us to begin. You also said that this is a guide you want to help people improve the relationships that they're already in, which is part of this book. Why did you write this book? Because I know a little bit is a lot about you and what you went through in your life.
Well, yes, exactly. But also, I wrote it because, as you mentioned, divorce, in my opinion, is the most serious disease in America because it impacts family and it impacts everybody and our whole social structure. And working with clients for many years, I realized that the reason most people get divorced is because they unconsciously choose subpar relationships. Because most of us don't even know what a good relationship is because most of us have never had one modeled for us.
Yeah.
So I realized, you know, that was part of the battle was I needed to teach people how to find a better match. And so what I did was I came up with my own model, you know, using my economics training, called the 4 levels of love so that people could identify and quantify whether their match had the potential to be a lasting one or one that would end up in divorce.
Mm-hmm. Do you think people not only get into some relationships that may blossom into marriage for all the wrong reasons, or do you think that, that we all say, as I put in the Facebook advertisement for this show tonight, helping you find the one, do you think sometimes instead of our expectations are sometimes too high, or the other side of the coin, we just want to be in a relationship, we want to be married, we want to have kids or whatever the case may be, whatever your priorities are, and we just settle for Mr. Right Now or Miss Right Now instead of really going deeper than the surface for that everlasting love that really means something? Do you think we settle a lot of times?
Oh, I definitely believe so, but I don't think most people realize that they're settling. What happens is that most people confuse shared interests, having common interests like, we work in the same place and we like the same things. They confuse that with shared values and shared areas of intimacy. So what happens is most of those divorces happen in what I call level 1 and level 2 relationships. Because historically, people have been limited in their search process. I mean, they basically met, whoever they met at church or their friend introduced them to, or maybe they met at the neighborhood bar or at work. So they didn't really have that many choices. But now we have online dating, which really increases our choices exponentially, and there's really no reason to settle. But the problem with online dating is you have to know how to use it, and there are a lot of things that you have to know about it in order to use it well and safely.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that as we move along with the program. But talk a little bit about what inspired you to write this book. I know that a lot of it is from your own observations, your own relationships you went through. I know you took some therapy and you got some advice. You didn't set out to write this book. So what compelled you to sit down and write a book? And I know writing is not a very easy thing to do. Now, you're a highly educated lady, so I know it probably came a little easier to you than it would say necessarily to me. But what compelled you to sit down and say, hey, I want to help other people with this?
Well, it all started, obviously I had a degree in marriage and family therapy, so I knew more than the average person. Mm-hmm. But through my own failures in relationships, I also had therapy. And then I realized, it costs a lot of money to get therapy, and most people can't afford it. And so about 10 years ago, I decided I was going to write this book. I just never got around to writing it. And as I kept dating and going through the process of dating, all of these new things kept coming up, like online dating. What's that about? How do you even know? I mean, and of course, my therapist had no idea what online dating was because she was married. Mm-hmm. And so I started looking around for books, and you find all these books by people who have no training. So right. They teach you how to find someone, but not the one. It's easy, basically you just show some pictures showing a lot of cleavage and you can find somebody. Yeah. So those are the kind of books that I was finding out there. And I said, God, I really wish that there was a book written by a professional person, who could really teach you what a good relationship was. How do you know, and how can you find the one instead of just another one? And so that's really why I decided to write the book, because I knew that people really needed this, because I needed this book. And basically, this is the book that was written that I needed at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I hope that everybody else will find it the same way. And what I did was I wrote a very large table of contents. It's 9 pages. Yes. So that if you have any questions, you can go scroll through the 9 pages of table of contents and look up exactly what you want. So it's really a guide.
It's, by the way, for those of you out there, this is an excellent book to get. It's an easy read. It's a wonderful read. And something I forgot to say at the beginning of the program, this is just one of many visits that Natalie's going to make with us throughout the year to help you try to find that perfect person, that number one match. And we'll go through a lot of different things. Tonight, we're just going to concentrate on some of the beginning chapters and the 4 levels of love. The book is called It's a Match, The Guide to Finding Lasting Love. And they can find it in every bookstore around, and they can also find it on Amazon. And I know you've recently done some book tours up in New York and, of course, down in Coral Gables in Miami. They can find it on Amazon, correct?
Yes, Amazon.com. I have it as an ebook and a paperback. And locally, well, I'm from Miami.
Right.
I'm doing actually a book launch for the Miami book launch at Books and Books on February 5th at 6:30 in the Coral Gables branch. So if anybody's around, I'd love to have you come and visit.
Okay. We have a question out there from one of our listeners. Divorce is so socially accepted today, making it easier for people to do so. Not looking like very bad things as it did back in the days, making it hard on people. In other words, people today can get divorced easily. They get married and they get divorced easily. It's easy come, easy go. Back in the day, people couldn't get divorced as easily, and they really had to work at their relationships. You think that has something to do with people saying, hey, if it doesn't work out, I can always get a divorce? You think that that's one of the reasons why people, some marriages don't work out, because they say, oh, if it doesn't work the first 6 months, boom, you're out of here, I can get a divorce. And they don't really work at it, because a marriage is, you've got to work at it. I mean, it's a give and take. It's not 50 and 50. It's 100% on each person's side to give in a relationship.
You're absolutely right. And what happens is, I think a lot of marriages stayed together even though they were miserable.
Yeah.
What we do know is that, you have to have a healthy relationship, you need two healthy people. But you also, let's assume you have one of my higher level relationships, a level 3 or a level 4. You still need commitment to the relationship to try to work through no matter what, but you also need relationship skills. Because most people cannot even communicate effectively without making the other person wrong or defensive. So in my book, I even have some of these relationship skills, like even how to argue. How do you argue without, while keeping the focus on what you're arguing about, instead of saying, hey, you're so stupid for doing that, or whatever. And so then these arguments devolve. So what happens is that we build up so much resentment because we have lack of relationship skills that oftentimes by the time they go to a therapist, relationships are not that salvageable. So if you start with go ahead.
No, I once heard George Burns say that one of the secrets to he and Gracie, and I also heard this from other people in Hollywood, my own community, the show business community, one of the reasons why many of their relationships lasted as long as they did, they never went to bed angry at each other. No matter what they fought about during the day, they always found a way of saying, I'm sorry, let's talk about it tomorrow, but let's not go to bed angry tonight. And I think that that's part of it, because when people fight and argue over everything, and let's face it, we live in economic times that are bad. People are unemployed, so it's easy to get angry at each other. They really are dirty fighters. I will admit, my ex and I fought like crazy, and I wasn't a clean fighter. I learned from my dad, and that was bad. And when I realized what I was doing, I stopped doing it. But I think people do get into relationships for sometimes all the wrong reasons, and they try it, and they also try to hold on to relationships because they don't want to be alone for all the wrong reasons.
Well, exactly. As I said, it takes two healthy people, and sometimes people need to be with somebody, so they're really more codependent. They need somebody to validate them or to help them heal their own emotional wounds. And so a healthy person going to a healthy relationship is actually somebody who's self-sustaining. So, for example, if something you do triggers my feeling abandoned or whatever, I can say to myself, okay, hold on, this is what's going on with me, and I'm okay. And so that's a sign of a healthy reaction, where an unhealthy person would get clingy towards you and say, oh, you've got to fix, how I'm feeling. And so what happens is unless you're in a good place emotionally and you have your own self-love, you're really not really ready to be in a healthy relationship. And so I think that that's part of the problem when you choose someone instead of being alone. I got to the point where I loved being alone.
Yeah. And,
because I had done so much work on myself that it was going to take a very special person to get me to, to be in a relationship with them. And actually, and that's a really great place to be, because then you have choices.
Yeah.
and you don't make choices out of a need.
Yeah, I remember my grandmother saying to me, before you can love someone else, you need to learn to live alone. And as ugly as I am, I managed to accomplish that easily enough. And you need
Yes,
to like yourself and love yourself, not narcissistically love or like yourself, but to love yourself to the point where you're comfortable with yourself. You can't be comfortable with others if you're not comfortable in your own skin of who you are. And it doesn't matter if you're highly educated or whether you're not highly educated, or you make millions of dollars a year, or whether you're just making $25,000 or $30,000 a year. If you're happy, it shows through, and it makes it easier for you to have relationships with others. And because I told you I recently met somebody, and
right.
and she and I just seem to get along very well. She's a highly educated person, which brings me into doubt about her opinion of me. But let's get on to something you were talking about earlier about just for relationships, showing some cleavage in a book or something. Do you think that sometimes people take the word lust and mistake it for the word love? And after the sex is over and a couple of years into the marriage, they turn around and look at each other and go, okay, what's next?
Well, sometimes they do. What happens is when you first meet somebody, men are very visual. So men
Mm-hmm.
are initially attracted for visual reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so hence, those pictures with the cleavage will attract somebody, and it's usually for the wrong reason. But the first stage if you know the stages of romance, which I also talk about,
Mm-hmm.
when you first meet somebody, everybody is in what I call the honeymoon stage. Everything looks great. The sex is great, and you see everything through rose-colored glasses. And the reason one of those things that I suggest is that you actually wait to have sex with somebody. And it's not because I'm a prude, but rather the moment a woman has sex with a man, she releases a hormone, which bonds her to the man, where a man bonds to a woman through time and respect.
Mm-hmm.
So if a woman is bonded to the man, she tends to be clingy, where if the man hasn't had enough time to build respect and, and a liking to the woman, he's just ready to move on then, because and then as a woman becomes much more clingy, it just becomes a very bad thing. But I think initially it does start out with lust because it is chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
and then it evolves into respect and friendship and everything else.
Yeah, man, we're dogs. I mean, we'll we'll go from one to the other to the other to the other. And I'll admit, when I was in college, I was a little younger, and as my mother used to say, a little handsomer, and I had my moments. I worked on cruise ships and everything else, so I had my moments, and I know you've traveled on ships, so you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But another part of it too is, back in my day, there was the discos and the bars,
right?
And they're still out there. I mean, that hasn't changed. They may be called something else now, but do you think that people initially, as they're starting to get in their 20s and 30s, because that's the beginning point that we're going to talk about, they go to all the wrong places? I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean if you go to now, for instance. People say to me, Gary, go to a church. You're a man of faith. Go to a church. Yeah, I don't necessarily want somebody who's, I've dated a few girls that are highly faithful, and that didn't really work out because it just didn't work out. There was no give and take in that, But do you think people look in all the wrong places? And are there any right places really to look? I mean, they always say that, but is there really any right places to look?
Well, from my experience, once you leave college, where obviously that's a natural place to meet a lot of people who are in the same boat that you are, it gets harder because people are busy and they're working. And, today people work long hours. So what I have found, the best places to meet people is really online. And I find most professional people are online because it's about dating efficiency. And so, for example, once you're in your 30s and 40s, if you're hanging out at a bar, oftentimes you're an alcoholic. Or, so do you really want to meet that guy? So what happens is that I think that the best place to meet someone is online. Now, of course, if you have friends or parties through friends and you happen to meet somebody, that's great because you have some common ground. There are also other people who meet through Facebook, through friends of friends. And I actually wrote a blog article on that because there's some people really attempting to meet people very inefficiently that way by poking and coming on to everybody on Facebook. But I think that there's no such thing as the right place to meet someone, but you're more likely to meet them online.
Well, I agree with you. I recently met this young lady in my life, a new relationship. So, we're at the very fringes of getting to know each other. But I met her at a Christmas party for the radio station over in Cocoa Beach, and she's wonderful. She's beautiful. She's educated, which, as again, I begin to wonder what her aspects are of me because I can't quite figure that out. The one thing that I always hear, and I believe this is truly, as you get older, as I'm 63, you look for something different in a relationship as compared to when you were 33. I know that, all right, I was away this weekend in San Diego, and there were a lot of beautiful women involved in the show that we did. There were showgirls, there was dancers, etc. And they're all beautiful. And I came across the same type of women when I lived in Las Vegas. But I think as you get older, and I don't think it has much to do with education as it does with the human being, I think you're looking for something deeper than just the original lustful, oh, yeah, because that only goes so far. But do you find people sometimes are not willing to put themselves out there to let people know, there's something more to me than just what you see? And maybe they're sending out all the wrong signals on both sides, men and women?
Of course. And, I think that as we grow older, we build defense mechanisms and walls around ourselves because we've been hurt, which is normal. So part of what I wanted to do in the book was to tell you, if you're going out there dating, become the best version of yourself. Because, as they say in the law of attraction, you get what you are. And so obviously what you've been getting hasn't been working, right? So what I do is I teach people how to become a better version of themselves by clearing limiting beliefs such as, I'm too ugly or I'm too old. Gary?
Yeah.
And clearing their old stories and their old ways of being. Because once you do that, you can really find who you really are underneath. Because as you clear limiting beliefs, you drop some of these walls.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to show people that they don't have to be a prisoner of their past. Yes, you've been hurt before, but it doesn't have to be that way. I give you tools to let you understand, so that when you've met the right one instead of just another one.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have knowledge to help you. And then as you clear yourself and you drop these walls, you're really more open so that people can get to know you.
Mm-hmm.
And then that therein comes a part of intimacy. A lot of people are afraid of intimacy, which is really talking about more than just the facts of their lives.
Right.
But to be able to talk about the fears and dreams and desires. And as a matter of fact, my 4 levels of love model says that the number of shared intimacies and core values, the more of those that you have, the better your relationship. And there are actually 10 areas of intimacies.
Mm.
So if you're able to be intimate, which is to really disclose more than the facts in these 10 areas with somebody as you get to know them, you're really showing them who you are. You're building a relationship.
Right. What about our past baggage? People bring a lot of that to a relationship, which precludes them from moving further or advancing in another relationship. I'll admit, when I first got divorced, I carried that around for a while. But after a while, it does disappear, and it means nothing now. I mean, I know the mistakes I made and the mistakes that she made, etc. But do people carry baggage way too long and comparisons to the past, their first boyfriend, first girlfriend, etc., etc.? And one question I want to throw in here, and I asked you this a couple of weeks ago, does this philosophy that you're writing in your book does it work for people who are gay?
Of course. This works for people who are gay or what, for any type of relationship. And you can use the concepts even for friendships. Because what is a friendship and what is a relationship? It involves intimacy and having shared core values. You know, the more of these you share, the more likely you have a deeper relationship, right? Mm-hmm. So of course, most people, we call it repetition compulsion. We tend to choose the same person over and over again, whom we swear is totally different and has a different name. However, until we really start to become psychologically minded and examine our patterns of behavior, and I take people through the very exercises I use for clients and examining your relationship history. Okay, what were the characteristics that all of the people you dated had in common? You know, and what do they have in common with your parents? Because oftentimes we choose people who have some of the characteristics of our parents, particularly the parent we had a problem with. So once you start realizing that and you start examining, okay, so what are my beliefs about relationships? Do I think that all relationships fail or that they work for somebody else but not me? Or what do I believe about others? Do other people respect me? All of these things are what I call limiting beliefs. They limit us from finding the true love that we deserve. So once you identify these limiting beliefs, and again, I walk you through this in the book, then I also walk you through an energy psychology technique that you can do yourself to clear them from you. So once you clear these limiting beliefs, you're really ready to choose a different type of partner because you no longer have the need to keep repeating that pattern.
How important?
And so therefore,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I said so that the only way we can stop repeating our past mistakes is to get to know ourselves and clear these past patterns of behavior.
How important is being upfront to your prospective partner at the beginning of a relationship? Now, you don't have to reveal all. Some people reveal everything, and that kind of takes away the veil of mystery. And also, how important is your self-esteem in getting involved in relationships?
Well, again, let's talk about the law of attraction. You attract what you are. If you have very low self-esteem, that means that you don't feel that you're that worthy. So what are you going to attract? Somebody who's going to reflect that back to you and treat you in a way that you're not worthy. So if you have low self-esteem, I would suggest you work on, learning to love yourself more and accept yourself as you are at that moment, and then start looking at what makes you believe that you don't deserve things, and then heal those things so that you can bring a better you into a relationship and attract a better person and a better match. I think that's very important. Go ahead.
In your book, you talk about a numbers game. What are you talking about?
Well, again, the more unique you are, the more it takes more to find the right partner for yourself. So, for example, online dating. There are millions of people out there. So what are the probabilities that someone who's unique can find their unique mate? A lot higher than if you just wing it, by staying in your neighborhood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so what happens, and also the protocols for online dating allow you to be much more upfront about what you want and what you expect, and then also in the communication. So you can actually screen out those that don't meet what you're looking for. And so it is a numbers game. The more people you meet, the more likely you're to meet the one.
Yeah. In your book on page 8, Online Dating, you talk about Game Changer. And in here, the Pew Research Institute projects that 11% of all American adults have used online dating. Among those who are currently single and looking for a partner, the statistics is even more than 3 times higher at 38%. And Pew found the percentages go up among those of higher income and higher education. 57% of all college graduates, know someone who has used online dating, and 41% know someone who has met a spouse or other long-term partners through online dating. And so the higher the income, the more often you're apt to go because you're your business world, your 9 to 5 life is so busy that you don't have time to really go to the places to meet someone that you might ordinarily go to. Is that why that increases so much?
I believe so. And the 9 to 5 is oftentimes, the higher level job you have, a 9 to 8 or 9 to 7. Or 7 to 7.
Mm-hmm. So
what happens is they have to be really efficient in meeting somebody. And you can put in there exactly what you're looking for, what the qualities that interest you and what values they must have and everything else. And then it's a lot easier. You just sit in your living room and scroll. And you go through these pages and you find people. So that's why I think that the more educated you are, the more likely you are to use online dating. I personally know a lot of couples who have met online. A lot of my personal friends.
Right.
And most of my therapist friends say that this is a big thing. Everybody's meeting someone online. Mm-hmm. And so they're saying, oh, my God, well, we don't even know how to advise them because we don't know anything about online dating.
Yeah.
So that was another reason why I wrote everything in the book, such as how to write your profile and how to read between the lines of someone else's profile and how to notice the red flags in someone's profile. Because people will tell you what they want. So if you want a long-term committed relationship leading to marriage, you say that. Mm-hmm. If somebody says a friendship, they mark everything, a friendship, a pal, long-term relationship, or marriage. If they mark everything, they probably are just, trolling.
Right. Well, yeah. Exactly. I remember someone asked me a few years ago if I had ever tried online dating, and the smart ass that I am, I answered, well, does looking at porn count? Oh
my God.
And I was kidding, and they kind of took me serious, and it was another guy, but I let's talk about some of the red flags, because you hear the horror stories, and I've heard them, and I know you probably have from some of your friends. What are some of the red flags that people need to look at and to identify and say, that person's telling me something, or they're not telling me something? I mean, let's talk about the pros and cons of what the red flags are.
Well, there are different types of red flags. For example, you have to look out for financial predators. So, or let's say you see a lot of profiles. I want to be your sweet thing if you can be my sugar daddy. Okay, she's telling you exactly what she wants, right?
Yeah, we're getting back to porn now, I think, yeah.
Well, exactly, but she's looking for somebody to take care of her financially. Now, men will say, I'm the perfect companion, if you've got the, for your big palace or whatever, whatever it is. Or if they start asking you questions about what kind of car you drive, what kind of house you have, all of these kinds of things. So, normally in the online dating, those kind of questions are not asked unless someone is trying to find, a financial prey.
Right.
The other things are if the tone of their message is very angry. My stupid wife left me, and it was all her fault, and now I'm out here trying to find somebody else. Well, guess what? Give that guy a pass.
Yeah.
Because he's not over his issues. He's got anger issues.
Right.
So there are all kinds of red flags, also personality types of red flags. Or there could be guys saying, looking for my next adventure. And then they start telling you, come visit my palace and see my beautiful horses and all of this. This guy's looking for a sex toy. So those are kind of red flags within the profiles, but there are also red flag personalities, which I also talk about
in the book. I know you, and it's a really great book. Is it difficult for people, those of us who are not fortunate enough for one reason or another to be wealthy? How difficult, and you walk around in the circles of people that are higher income. Is it? Are there difference? I don't know quite how to put this, but are there different standards that people who have money whether it be old money or nouveau riche, look for that they have to be careful of as compared to the rest of us? I mean, attraction is attraction is attraction, but is there a difference in income levels in what you look for and who you look for as far as a mate for the rest of your life? I mean, how did you meet the gentleman that's in your life? And by the way, he's a very lucky man.
Thank you. Well, actually, I met him online, but not online. not through that way. I was actually purchasing something from him online. Mm-hmm. And so it started up a conversation, and that's how I met him. But your first question was very good. There's always somebody who has more money than you do and less money than you do. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what income level you're in. And so I think no matter how much money you have or don't have, everybody's looking for the same thing. They're looking for a real relationship, a lasting love, someone who loves you and accepts you the way you are, who doesn't want to change you, who's not looking to take on a project. So it doesn't matter, because there's always going to be, let's say if you make $10,000 a year and the next person makes only $5,000, guess what? You're suddenly the target, right?
Right.
So it's not a question about that, but I think everybody's just looking for the same thing. They're looking for lasting love.
So it doesn't really, for a lot of people, if you go back to the old days, back when I lived in South Florida, the rich dated the rich and the poor dated the poor. And I guess that's, and if you were a poor kid dating a rich girl, daddy looked down on you like, what can you do for my daughter that she can't get from so-and-so down the street, Billy Bob the Third, who drives a Volvo or something, I guess is what I was basically asking. Is there a snobbiness amongst the wealthy towards people who don't have money? They're looking outside of their class, pardon the expression. Does that go on?
Well, I'm sure it goes on with some people, but like everything else, there's all kinds of ways that you could segregate yourself from somebody else. It could be, that person is the wrong religion. That person doesn't have as much faith or doesn't go to, church enough. It could be any which way. And I think you find all of that, in all aspects. It's not just about money. Mm-hmm. And I think that as you grow older, you make your own career, and people like you for who you are and what you stand for.
Right.
And the more self-love that you have, the more confident you are and the more attractive you are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people are really attracted to, somebody who is self-confident enough to want to be independent, but who's healthy enough and exudes confidence. I think that's what people are attracted to. It's not necessarily the money. It's not necessarily everything else. Now, of course, if you share the same core values, so for example, their core value, one of their 5 top core values might be to accumulate wealth. Well, that says something. If yours is not, then that might not be such a big mix. Mm-hmm. But I find that a lot of wealthy people, that's not their top value.
Yeah, that's true. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've known an awful lot of people that were extremely wealthy, lived in, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the area that I'm about to talk about, I know that Natalie knows it. It's a place in between North Miami and Hallandale. It's called Golden Beach. These are people that have old money, and I mean old money. They're not nouveau riche, not the newly rich. These are people that go back to the turn of the century, the 20s and 30s. They have money, and they've had money. And my mother used to decorate a home for a woman in the Golden Beach area, and I forget her name. She used to do her own gardening. You'd pull up, and you'd think she was the gardener. She was always out gardening and having fun, and they had more money than anybody I could possibly think. And they were the nicest people in the world, and they were married forever and the day. One thing I want to touch on that you mentioned, and that's people changing each other. It seems as though women have a great compassion to say, oh, I'll change that. Yeah, if the guy just drops his clothes and leaves it where he takes it off, you can probably change him from that. But there are some real bad things that people get into relationships with that if a person's an alcoholic or a drug addict or has severe emotional problems, you cannot change them. I mean, the leopard doesn't change his spots. Do you think that that's also part of it? Because women have a nurturing, mothering type of feeling towards other human beings. Do you think that that's also a problem in the beginning of a relationship, that thinking that, oh, I'll change him and make him a better person, and in reality, a bad boy is a bad boy no matter where it and how he is?
I think you're absolutely right. What happens is people who want projects are basically enablers.
Mm-hmm.
So you enable bad behavior. An alcoholic, if he decides that he wants to be sober, and he does his 12-step program and everything else, and he's helping himself and doing what he needs to heal himself, then he's not a project. So then you can go out with him because he's doing what he needs to do to take care of himself emotionally. Our only job as an adult is to take care of ourselves emotionally. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking for a project, what is it about yourself that you're ignoring? Mm-hmm. Usually people who want projects is that they don't want to take a close look at their own issues.
Right.
And they're basically codependent. So, and unfortunately, a lot of people who take on projects with like dating with alcoholics who are not in recovery, or people who have serious issues, come from families where they've grown up having to take care of a parent who's an alcoholic or anything like that. And again, a lot of the mental or emotional issues have, with therapy or medication, you can manage all of these.
Right.
But you can't go in there trying to manage somebody else's life.
In your book, and of course you're written this from a place where you went through some therapy. I know you go through a lot of different steps
right.
About good and bad relationships, what you should and shouldn't do. But that's one thing I wanted to touch upon. Let's get back to the online dating. What do you recommend for people to go to? Because we're not going to be even get to there's so much to do. I mean, my God, you're going to be back so many times. It's going to be great. I'll be having a relationship with you. I'll be having a relationship with you, and your boyfriend's going to go, that Gary Allen, you got to stop it. You got to cut it out now.
No, he's very secure.
He's a great he's a great guy.
And we're very committed to the relationship, so he doesn't have to worry.
No, he doesn't. Believe me. You get one look at me, you don't ever have to worry. I'm telling you. My mother used to say I have a perfect face for radio, and that's pretty much about it. Where do we recommend? I mean, there's so many online dating sites. There's so many, first of all, don't go to Craigslist. I can tell you that. That's the poor man's don't go there, man. That'll curl your toes. But where do you recommend?
Been there and done that, Gary?
I've been there. I ain't going to say I've done that. But listen, I'll tell you, it's funny you mentioned that. Somebody said to me here in Orlando once about something. I don't know. A woman said something to me. She was trying to pick me up. She must have been blind as a bat. And she said she was going to whisper it into my ear. If I do something for her, she would give me the time of my life for an evening. And I said to her in return, I was at a concert, the Rolling Stones concert. She said if I would let her do something to see the concert better, she would give me the happiest night of my life. And I said, honey, I lived in Vegas for 10 years. If I haven't already done it, then there's nothing you can think of that's probably ever going to, I came across that. Listen, let's talk about the online dating for a second or two or a couple of minutes or whatever. Where can people go that you have found that the best sites? I mean, we see eharmony.com, we see this, we see that. Where are the best places for people to go, either locally or nationally or whatever, depending upon who they are? Where are some of the good sites and where are some of the bad sites that you would say stay away from them besides Craigslist?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a lasting love, I would recommend going to maybe one or two of the big ones, such as Match.com and eHarmony. Mm-hmm. And then there are a lot of specialty sites. So, for example, there's there's a farmer site, there's a vegetarian site. Uh-huh. So whatever your special interest, also go to that. Mm-hmm. So I think that you should work like 3 sites at the same time. And of course, the larger ones have a larger they have so many different types of people. I know, for example, gay people look for men looking for men on Match.com, women looking for women on Match.com, or man looking for women. So it has everything because there's so many people on there. So again, it's a numbers game, but then I suggest a specialty one because if you have a special interest that's very important to you, like single parents meet, that if you're a single parent and it's very important for you to meet somebody else who's a single parent, then that might be a great place. So I think, and I happen to like the Match.com and eHarmony type of profiles because you can write a lot and you get to see a lot, so you don't waste time. They ask
but aren't
so
there
many
a lot of questions? Aren't there a lot of questions with eHarmony?
Yes, and there are a lot of questions with Match.com, but guess what? If you're looking for love, for lasting love, you're going to put the time in. And the person who has those little tiny profiles, guess what? He's not really looking. He's trolling. So, it depends on how much you want it. That's how much effort you're willing to put into it.
Right.
But once you do the profile, it's done. Now, what I would suggest, if you're looking for lasting love, you don't go on Tinder. Tinder is a hookup site. It's basically you hook up with people that you barely even know their names. You say, okay, let's meet in 20 minutes here, and they basically have sex. There was a big article on Vanity.
Hold on a second. Let me go to Tinder while we're talking, and I'll get that taken care of.
Well, there was a big article on Vanity Fair about this. And so it's, again, any person who's willing to have sex with somebody that they haven't met, first of all, they're not very safe, and they don't know if they're letting an axe murderer inside their house. And what does that say about your self-esteem? I guess, under the double standard, a man probably just thinks it's okay. But, so I would say stay away from Tinder if you're looking for lasting love.
And
if you're looking for love for a night, that's great. Yeah,
for Mr. Right Now, it's okay.
Right.
We talked about one thing that I really, and we discussed this quite a bit. There are people in this world, let's be honest, that are, and we've talked about it, overweight, not particularly attractive, not by their, it's the genes that they were born with, or they may suffer from a handicap. There may just be something about them that they're not Troy Donahue and, some gorgeous looking actress. What do you recommend to someone like that? I mean, there are men I know that love chubby women, Zoftic women, as they used to say, Rubenesque type of woman. And there are women who enjoy men who are chubby, and people who have physical ailments and things like that. Is it harder for them to find a match, or is it easier for them to find a match?
Well, it depends who you're comparing them to. I think, look, in my belief, there is a match for everyone. Everyone can find a lasting love if you have the time, the patience, and you have the skills. Because it's a skills game now. Let's face it. How you do this online, how you work all of this, it's a skills game. So no matter what your situation is, there's somebody out there for you. And I promise you that there's somebody out there for you. And I happen to know that there are men who love very heavy women. Yeah, and there are women who love very heavy men, and there are sites for that. So what you want to do when you do a profile, or you're trying to meet somebody and you want to be upfront because you want to attract the person who wants you, not the image you're trying to portray. Yeah. So when you put a picture of you 30 pounds ago, 10 years ago, guess what? You're wasting your time. Because I guarantee you there's somebody out there who wants you just the way you are. And isn't that really who you want to find?
When you meet that person, when you meet that person and you're first starting to date and you haven't been in the dating game for a long time, say you were married for 15 years, you got a divorce, or one of the spouse, your spouse passed away, whether you're a man or a woman, and it's hard for them to get out there. online dating to start off with? Recommendations from friends about dating? What do you suggest are maybe some of the baby steps that they need to take for people who have been out of the dating game? Maybe they've been divorced for 20 years and their children are now out of the house. They're empty nesters, and they maybe are thinking about having a relationship again. Online dating or go to friends?
Well, I think that's a very good question. I think it depends on where you live. And, for example, if you're divorced or you've been widowed, are you ready to move on? You have to really be honest with yourself. Are you really ready to date? So once you decide you're ready to date, and if you're divorced, if you've forgiven, your past and what has happened, so that you don't carry that baggage into the next relationship, I would suggest online dating or having friends fix you up and go out on what I call trial dates. So I've had clients who go out with some people who they say, well, I know they're really not going to probably be the one, but it's a safe date for me to go practice. To see what it's like to go out with somebody in a non-pressured environment. And particularly if you go out with groups of friends, that's also a very non-pressure environment to go out in. So you can practice your social skills. You can practice flirting. All of these things are skills, and you can practice these.
Is that the new way of dating, going out with a group of friends, and then maybe one of those friends turns out to be someone you're really slightly interested in? Or is it safer to go out with a group of friends and you might see somebody across the room, and because you're there with a group of friends, you don't feel any obligation to go too far, but you still go over and strike up a conversation?
Well, that's really two questions there. I think going out with a group of friends is an easy way to start going out. However, if you go out with too many friends, it's very hard for somebody to approach you. Because who's going to go into, a whole team? Or if you're a woman and you're standing around with 5 people and you're all huddled in, what man is going to try to break that group up? Or the same thing, if you're a group of guys and you're huddled in, talking and laughing, how is a woman going to approach you? So if you go out with friends, go out with maybe two other people and fan out, sort of looking outwardly, so it's easy for someone to approach you.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who had a philosophy in Vegas, and she always used to say, when I go out looking for a man, I always take my ugliest girlfriend. This way I stand out better than she does.
Well, I would say she was a little bit insecure.
Oh, very.
I like to go out with my girlfriend who's the most fun, because if you're having a good time,
right,
it doesn't matter if you didn't meet somebody that day. And if you meet somebody, if somebody sees you having fun, you're attractive.
Right.
You exude confidence and you look like a fun person. You're approachable. And as I said, if you don't meet somebody, it doesn't matter. You had a great time. And that's the way really to go out. When you go out, even on these first dates, don't go out thinking, oh, he's going to be the one. And if he's not, don't be disappointed. Go out and try to enjoy yourself and get to know the other person, so that at least you met somebody new and you learned something new. It's about having fun. It's not, yes, I say that there are protocols and all of this, but in the meantime, you have to remember, it's about having fun.
What do you say about people who seem to go after the same type, time in, time out, time in, time out, and it always fails, and they're afraid to jump out of that safety net, going for the Mediterranean look, or they love Asian women or Asian men or whatever the case may be? What do you do? How do you get them to get out of that safety cocoon, that safety net, and try and experience somebody and someone new that's out of that stereotype that they like?
Well, obviously, if they keep repeating that stereotype, it's not working very well for them. Otherwise, they would already be settled down with one of them.
Right.
However, what I generally find is not so much that they look for the same looks, but rather the same personality styles that don't work for them. And it's, again, going back, either go to a coach or a therapist, or go through the exercises in my book to try to find out what's your pattern? What are you attracted to? What do they have in common? And because obviously what you've been doing is not working. So you've got to do something different, but you've got to figure out what it is that you're doing that's not working first.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do think that coaches are invaluable, coaches and therapists.
Really?
In this, if you're stuck. If you can't do it on your own with a self-help book like mine, then get a little help.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the short conversations you and I have had, I told you about when I met this young lady, how I approached it. Let's take it one step at a time. It's been a long time since I really dated or any long-lasting relationship. But I will tell you, while I was away this weekend, first thing I did when I came in the door yesterday or late last night was I called her and said, hey, I really thought about you a lot. I mean, I may have been surrounded by beautiful ladies all the way around, but I really thought about you. And I look forward to seeing you this weekend. I mean, it was just, I don't know, and I don't have a long-lasting relationship with her. But, yeah, I used to be in a pattern of dating the same type of woman, dark hair, dark eyes, Italian, etc. And it never really worked out. Now, I will tell you one thing. I never dated a redhead in my entire life. My mother was a redhead. I don't know if that's a Freudian thing, but I've never dated a redheaded woman in my life. And probably because of my mother being a redhead, I don't know if that says anything or not.
Well, I don't know. I've never dated a redhead either. So I don't know what that is. But I do find that, one of the things that you said makes it very endearing. You hadn't dated a lot.
Right.
And you told her up front, hey, I haven't done this a lot. Let's just take it slowly. Mm-hmm. And you know what? That's always the best policy. Take things slowly. You're not in a rush. Get to know someone. Right. Become friends. Because then, as you get to know somebody, you also get to see their red flags. And you get to meet their friends. You get to see how their friends talk about them. Mm-hmm. And all of this. So as you get to know someone slowly, I think that gives you a better start than if you rush head first. But also the fact that, as you said, it's very endearing when you say, oh, I haven't done this very much. Mm-hmm. It shows that you're vulnerable and that you're willing to be open, and people respect that. And so I think as to your prior question, if you're starting to date, tell somebody.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to rush into anything. I want to take things slowly. I'd like to get to know you.
Yeah.
And they can either take it or leave it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. In the little time that we have left, a couple of minutes, what's coming up for you? I know you have the Books and Books on February 5th at 6:30 p.m. down in Coral Gables, one of my favorite cities that happens to have my favorite university there. But what's up for you if people want to get a hold of you for the book? Say they don't live in Coral Gables or they don't live in South Florida, they can get it on Amazon. Talk about some of your seminars your online classes. And of course, this is Natalie Moore. It's a Match, the guide to finding that lasting love. Where can they get a hold of you?
Well, they can reach me on my website, nataliemore.net, and I have a button that says Contact Me. Also, we're putting together a divorcees weekend getaway in Grand Velas Resorts. So we're doing that May 4th through the 8th, and it's going to be a weekend of many seminars and fun activities. And so that's another way to get a hold of me, and that's a seminar that I'm doing. So it's at the Casa Velas. And I think it's in Puerto Vallarta. So anybody who wants to go to Puerto Vallarta to have a divorcees getaway, this would be a great event. I'm also doing several talks, and I've done some radio shows, and they can see them all on my website.
Well, and Natalie, I want to thank you so much. I'm going to call you back in a couple of days. We're going to set up your next visit and explore more parts, more chapters of your book. This has been a fascinating hour. I hope everybody gets something out of this and gets a few answers to get you started. Natalie Moore, her book is It's a Match, the guide to finding lasting love, looking for that one person in your life. And thank you, Natalie, for taking time to come on The Express, and I look forward to talking to you down the road. And before you go, let me just sign off with everybody else. I want to thank everyone for taking a few minutes out of your time to join us here on the Express. We'll be back next week. We've got 2 guests coming on next week, and I'm excited about that. You can also catch me on Facebook, Gary Allen, The Express. My YouTube site has kind of been screwed up thanks to yours truly again, but you can go on there, Gary Allen, The Express interviews, and probably find some of my past ones. Natalie's will be up there in about a week as well. So thank you, Natalie. Thank you all very much out there for taking the time to join us. And until next week, please take care of yourselves and each other.
Thank you, Gary.
You've been
Thank you,
listening to
everyone.
The Express with Gary Allen. Join us here every Tuesday night at 10 for more captivating talk with Gary Allen. See you next time on The Express.